Hey, TYT, this is Nomi Kanst. We have a special edition of an interview today, mainly because we're dealing with some technical issues. Robert Becker, who was the former Iowa director for Bernie Sanders for president, is in Puerto Rico right now, which of course has limited ability to communicate because of the devastation of the hurricane that hit Puerto Rico, the several hurricanes actually that hit Puerto Rico. So Robert is, I'm going to call him Becker because he's a friend of mine. Becker is in Puerto Rico right now. He flew out right after the hurricane hit, and he's stationed somewhere where he has decent cell service for the moment. So Becker, thanks for joining us. I know this is very hard to put together.
Well, I hope you can hear me. I'm actually on the island of Vieques, Puerto Rico, which is off the eastern coast of the main island with a population of 9,000 American citizens. The eye wall from Hurricane Maria went right over the top of the island. We have no power. We have just recently restored some running water and very, very limited communications. I have been on the ground here for a week as part of a completely crowdsourced GoFundMe organization formed minutes after the storm ravaged the island called Vieques Love. We were the sort of first people to reach the island. There were one or two sat phones available. I hopped on a medical evacuation plane with about 10 sat phones a week ago. We immediately established communications for critical infrastructure for hospital, fire department, police, key community leaders. And it has just been an amazing citizen and volunteer-led effort of friends of the Vieques Island and the States stepping up with some funding and unprecedented cooperation on the ground. We have just recently, within the last 48 hours, started to receive FEMA response. So it's one of those cases where volunteers and citizens have out-mobilized the federal government. You know, there's a ton of work to still do. We're treading water. But, you know, for your viewers there, the Trump administration needs to take this very seriously because while we're got our head above water, it's still a precarious situation here.
You know, there's a common theme that we've now recognized when there's a disaster, when the power goes out, when communication is very hard to bring in and out. How are you guys learning about what's happening on the outside, how the media is portraying Puerto Rico right now, how the Trump administration is responding? How are you accessing information and news?
Well, we've established regular satellite phone communication with the mainland and with the United States. Quite frankly, 98% of our focus is getting much-needed aid, parts to fix generators, fuel to run generators, fuel to run the water systems. But occasionally we will be told about some ridiculous things that are being said by the Trump administration. And, you know, the latest I heard was that some nonsense about Puerto Ricans looking for a handout. Let me tell you, it's 3.5 million Americans down here. And on my second day here, we set up with satellite phones, because nobody could communicate with their loved ones. We set up 2 centers on both sides of this island, satellite phones where hundreds of Vietcongese queued up home. And when I got an elderly Vietcongese man wearing a Vietnam veteran hat falling into my arms crying because he finally reached his daughter in New York just to let her know he was alive, it is highly offensive to me the way that the response has been federally. I'm watching poor and working-class Puerto Ricans band together, clean up and remove rubble, clear the streets. And, you know, these folks are working hard, working together, but the federal response has been embarrassingly slow. Now, I will say this. Thank God for the United States Coast Guard. They were able to outsource us some much-needed diesel so that we could get the water generation running. But the fact that private citizens have banded together to raise private dollars, we've done things like restore communications down here. We have completely restocked the hospital, which is operating outside in a tent because of damage to the hospital, to the point where they're actually reopening a pharmacy for the first time in 20 years at the hospital. You know, we were able to source 5,000 gallons of diesel. by either purchasing half of it or getting half of it offloaded in our armada of trucks and containers off of a Coast Guard cutter to get the water running. These are things that, these are people that are not trained at disaster response are doing. Now FEMA has an assessment team here. The U.S. Navy has helped us restore some limited connectivity for cell phone. But we're starting to get relief efforts. But now I hear that Trump is coming down tomorrow. We had severe weather Saturday and Sunday that grounded relief planes to this island. Now we're hearing the airspace is going to be grounded tomorrow because he wants to come play leader. This is a situation where he shouldn't even be down here. So it is a sad day when the United States government cannot get a response, to American citizens in dire need.
What's the situation in terms of like water level? We've seen the photos from above, and we saw the mayor. She was treading through water. But what is it like right now? Is it clearing out? Are people able to access their homes?
Yeah, we had Vieques, like I say, it's 8 miles off the eastern coast, so we had a different flooding situation than the city of San Juan, which is a much larger population. We had a tremendous storm surge here. I have a friend of mine who had a 14-ton boat end up a couple hundred yards inland because the eye wall went right over the population center on the south side. We had flash flooding this weekend with some severe weather, but right now, the major concern is all the power lines are down. We have, spotty ferry service bringing fuel over. We have managed to get some shipments, but the energy dynamic here has changed as everyone has to switch to diesel. Diesel powers the water, diesel powers generators, but this island is completely dark at night, and restoring power could take 6 months to a year, we're hearing estimates. So one of the things that Vieques Love, the GoFundMe effort, is looking at is once we sort of clear the initial recovery hurdle, is trying to leverage the money we've raised to try to build a more sustainable alternative energy. All of the energy that this island gets from the main island, which is an ancient coal-fired plant, it's time to really change that and look at solar and wind options, and also to rebuild in a way to prepare for the next superstorm. I mean, you'll find no argument on this island that climate change is real. People that have lived here for decades have never seen anything like this.
With that being said, because of the increase in hurricanes, especially this season, and how serious these hurricanes are, was there any word about whether or not Puerto Rico was prepared for this type of devastation? Had they been trying to plan in the past? Had the government been pressuring the federal government, the U.S. federal government, to come in and intervene way before, this season, this hurricane season?
Well, Puerto Rico has been in dire fiscal straits for a couple of years now with the, sort of the vulture capitalists, that have sort of, the severe debt. So, very limited. I mean, this municipality that I'm in Isabel Segundo on the north side of Vieques was practically broke before the storm, just because of the debt and the financial crisis. So, we're having issues with generators that need parts. There's very little oil for the generators on the island. So, sort of the United States ignoring the fiscal crisis and letting that fester to a point of bankruptcy. I mean, hospitals and schools were closing before the storm because they were out of money. Really put them even more in a defensive position because they didn't have the financial wherewithal to even prepare for stuff like this. This is going to be a long-term recovery effort. But the U.S. government has to take a hard look at Puerto Rico. I heard that President Trump initially did not want to lift the Jones Act because he put the interests of multinational billionaire shipping corporations ahead of the lives of 3.5 million Americans.
Explain what the Jones Act is again.
It puts a heavy cost burden on shipping in here, and it was slowing up relief effort because of the extra tariffs and stuff like that. So lifting it for 10 days does nothing for us. These are isolated islands. Everything to sustain life has to be shipped in, from concrete to lumber. It's just there's not a heavy-duty manufacturing or natural resource base here There's no oil reserves. There's no natural gas reserves. So those shipping restrictions have been strangling this economy for 70, 80 years since when the Jones Act was put in place. And also, specifically to the ANCUS, you have the decades-long struggle with the U.S. Navy, and they used to do a bombing range down here. The Navy is no longer a presence. So on the one hand, the Navy not being here to help with a faster response is bad, but also this population specifically has been sort of run over consistently by the U.S. government, and this is their opportunity to step up and make it right for the people of this island that were, sort of a forced host of the U.S. Navy with decades of bombing that have caused this serious environmental damage on the eastern side of the island. So it's, the people of the ANCUS have endured for decades. It's time for the U.S. government to get serious, to step up, and Puerto Rico as a whole, and treat these people like the Americans that they are.
Do you see Puerto Ricans taking? I mean, obviously they're devastated right now, but once there's a bit more recovery and a little bit more stability on the ground, do you see Puerto Ricans rising up and pushing for statehood once again?
Too early to tell where that's going to go. The thing that is, look, I've been coming and going to the ANCUS for 20 years, and what I'm seeing are the parties united in the recovery. Every time there's a briefing in the town plaza, which is done where citizens gather around, I mean, it's really old school. You'll see the mayor and his vice mayor flanked by the opposition party leaders. So everyone's united here. It's no time for politics. I don't think anyone's thinking about statehood or not. It's a daily survival. I mean, the pressures of not having power is especially straining on elderly. We've had a few fatalities in the last couple of days. With older Villakenses that were succumbing to heat or just the stifling, not having to be able to even run. Just this morning.
We're losing you, Becker.
If
you can hear me. We lost
again?
You for a second. I said we lost you for a second.
Can you hear
there?
me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Yes. Yeah, just this morning we had an emergency medical evacuation of an 81-year-old retired U.S. Navy Master Chief who served 32 years. We had to get him out because it was too much for him to bear with his lack of medication and medical ailments. So, not many people are thinking about politics right now. We're thinking about day-to-day survival in terms of getting water and, food and things of that nature. Because the other thing is the economy is completely shut down. So people are pitching in, but eventually folks are going to have to get back to work. The pharmacy has been offline. One of the things that the ANCUS Love has been doing is paying for prescriptions. I mean, I had a friend of mine the other day who needed $300 for insulin, couldn't get it out of the bank because the bank is shut down. The bank has no access to accounts. So, we gave him $300 to get your insulin. So our daily mantra is nobody's dying on our watch. Everyone is working together, and, we'll get to the politics later.
Unbelievable. Well, I mean, of course, if they were recognized as a state, they would have access to funds, and they would be in a much, it would be horrible still, but they would have a more direct line to our federal government because, unfortunately, the economic situation in Puerto Rico started far earlier than today when people don't have jobs, they can't get to work, they can't go to the banks. Robert Becker, thank you so much. Any other, what can we do? What can the people back home where you're from do? How can we contribute to our fellow Americans in Puerto Rico right now?
Well, there's a number of wonderful organizations that are doing great work. If your listeners are concerned specifically about the island of the ANCUS, the GoFundMe page, it's the ANCUS Love. I don't have the URL in my hand, but it's pretty Googleable. That money is going straight to relief here. We've started to have an armada of privately sourced and funded planes, and everyone on the ground here is working strictly as a volunteer. So, and everyone in the U.S. that's coordinating it is volunteering. It is just unbelievable how people have dropped what they're doing in the U.S. to support this because we knew the federal response was going to be slow the second we saw that eye wall go across the island. And, just don't let the Trump administration tweet away distractions. This is going to be a long-term recovery effort. And, there's millions of American citizens that are counting on the U.S. government to step up and do the right thing. And this is a chance to shine, but, they need to take this seriously or lives are going to be lost.
Unforgivable. That's the way that I look at it right now. Is unforgivable among our president being unable to rise to the occasion when our fellow citizens need it the most. So thank you very much, Becker. Appreciate your time. Stay safe and, keep us in the loop as much as you can. I know it's very difficult, given the limited technology, the technological and power situation there right now.
All right. Thank you very much, Naomi. We appreciate it.